Hello, hello. Let's get Jessie on here. Hey, there she is.
Hi.
Hello. It's so good to see you.
You too.
How are you tonight?
I'm good. Yeah, we just finished having dinner. We had a little pizza party, homemade pizza party tonight.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah. How are
Nice.
you?
Good. I'm worn out. Ivy and I went into the woods today and hands and feet climbing over rocks to get where we wanted to go.
I've definitely done that before.
With backpacks.
Yeah.
So I am beat.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Like in the best way, right?
Right. I'm like, oh my gosh, my body. Yeah, but it was great. It was good. It was super good.
Amazing.
So I'm excited about tonight. I'm so grateful that you said yes to come on.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. Well, first, I'm going to tell people how we know each other.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm Kimberly. This is Jessie. And we met at a reunion that some of you may have heard Ivy and I talking about. So we're a part of the Wake movement, or Wakewater Co. It's changed names, but yeah, so we met at the waterfall, the little waterfall. No, the big waterfall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was like, whoa, the electricity going through my hands. And you're like,
we had the lobster class.
Yes. And then that was it.
Yeah.
So, and then the next waterfall, we were there too.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a great experience, and it was so connecting. And I'm so grateful for my connection with you.
Same. It's funny because I feel like we didn't really, that was like towards the end of the retreat. And after that waterfall experience, it was like, I came up to you after and I was like, are we going to be friends? I want to like get to know you better. And you were like, yeah, okay, let's do this.
Let's do that. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was great. It was a great experience. Just having the waterfalls and just the whole experience was amazing.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. And then I started following you, and I learned that you have a podcast as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about the Gene Keys.
Yeah, so we have our podcast, McKenna and I. She's at Emerald Earth Empress on Instagram. We like co-host, like you and Ivy do, our podcast, Contemplative State. And it's funny because we didn't start the podcast thinking that we were gonna, like, it wasn't intended that we were gonna talk about Gene Keys. It was just we were talking every week about things that we were contemplating ourselves. And we were like, well, I feel like other people are thinking about this or contemplating these things. And we just decided, like, let's turn this into something that people can listen to, or that we can invite people on to like be a part of the conversation. And it kind of just took off. We haven't recorded anything in a while, but we were just talking today about we should probably get on that,
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and so I want to talk about the Gene Keys, because with the Gene Keys, gosh, where do we even start? And hello, everybody coming in and everybody that's going to be listening later, but gosh, where do we start? So I was reading the Gene Keys. I was looking at the Gene Keys a while back, and then tornado happened in my house and everything. So I really didn't get very far. I lost all my books, was doing human design, Gene Keys. And then after the retreat, I was like, okay, I want to get back into this. And then you do what you do with your website too, which I want you to talk about.
Okay.
Where you guys, me now, because I'm part, we talk about a specific Gene Key. So can you tell us a little bit about what the gene keys are?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just want to preface, I'm not an expert. This is just my own experience with them. I found the Gene Keys almost 3 years ago now, through a friend of mine who had like introduced them to me. And same with Human Design. It was like both came in at the same time. And it's cool because Human Design came first.
Mm-hmm.
And the person who brought in the transmission of the Gene Keys, Richard Rudd, he studied with Ra Uru who brought in Human Design. And so he studied with him for like, I want to say like 20 years. It was like a very long period of time. And then this transmission of the Gene Keys came through him. And they like go together. They kind of follow the same I Ching through the sun. They follow the same map essentially. I found that Human Design has a lot more moving parts so far in my experience. That has like, there's a lot to it because it is a science. I think Vita said today, it's the science of evolution. It's like something that proved that evolution was what it was. So yeah, the Gene Keys, to me, that's what I started studying first because I just felt really drawn to it. And it felt so simple in the sense that like it relates to your experience, your embodied experience. And I feel like because it, like, no matter what your hologenetic profile, like what Gene Keys are in your profile, all 64 apply to everyone. Like we've all experienced the frequencies of each gene key at some point in time. So
yes, I was reading 18 yesterday, and I was like, this has got to be in somebody in my family. So I did everybody's gene key, and I was like, it's not in anyone's, but it's so applicable.
Yeah, especially this one that we're in, which is we're currently in the I Ching in the Sun, is Gene Key 18 or Gate 18 in the Human Design. And it's the shadow of judgment, the gift of integrity, and the siddhi of, hang on, I have it right here. I didn't read all the way through it yet. I kind of take it in bits. Oh, the siddhi of perfection. Yeah. And so each, I guess if we're going to go a little bit more into about the gene keys and kind of what they are, each gene key has 3 frequencies. So there's always a shadow frequency, a gift frequency, and a siddhi frequency. And like, I've always looked at it as like, the shadow is like the lower vibration, right? It's the shadow. And the siddhi is like what they call the Buddhic frequency, or like the enlightenment frequency. And in the middle is the gift frequency, which to me is kind of where we're at, like where we're coming to as a collective. And it's most attainable, I guess, to me. Like that's what I've experienced. Like
I agree.
The Siddhic frequencies, I'll read it and I'll be like, I want to be that. Like, how do I get there? Yeah. And Richard Rudd always says, like, when you think about trying to attain any of these, it like takes you out of it, because this is a transmission, kind of just like Human Design, where it's not about the mind, it's about the body. It's about the frequency that we are resonating at. So I love when I've read through, and I haven't read all the gene keys. I started with my profile and read through all of mine, and then I did like my partner's and read all of his, and then I learned about how the gene keys move through the I Ching, and that we're in a different gene key every about 5.5 days. Oh wow. And now that I've been moving through it in that way, following it through the sun, let me tell you, there is something about it where you're like, oh, no wonder. Like, that is so relevant to this undercurrent that I've been feeling, or, it gives us kind of like a state of awareness to be like, okay, this is what a lot of people are experiencing, whether they're conscious of it or not. Because when the I Ching is moving through the sun, and this is both for Human Design and the gene keys, it's the neutrinos from the sun and the earth that are passing through our energy fields. So it's like it's information that's being transmitted whether we're aware of it or not. And I find that so fascinating.
Yeah. And it doesn't go in like order, right?
Mm-hmm. Right, correct.
So it kind of goes all
around.
around.
So what and I'm still learning a bit about the map technically, if that's what you want to call it. But what I've found is that like right now in Gene Key 18, it follows the codon rings. So right now we're in the codon ring, we're in the codon ring of matter. And so that contains Gene Key 18, Gene Key 46, which we talked about last week in the Portal of Overflow, Gene Key 48, and Gene Key 57. Okay. So like we did 46 last week, now we're in 18, then I think the next one is 48, and then the last one is 57. And so then we'll move into a new codon ring with the next Gene Key after 57. So I'm still learning about why that is and what code, like the whole map of like the codon rings. But I think that's cool because there's another added layer to it's not just random. There's a method to the madness, so to speak. You know? Yeah. So yeah.
That's so I'm learning as you're saying this, because I know a little enough, you know, because when I read them, like I started with my profile, and so I've done my activation sequence, I've done and I've read the Pearl. So there's 3 sequences, right?
Yes.
Activation or Genius, is it called Genius?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then the Pearl.
No.
And then
it's the yeah, and then there's the Venus sequence. So they go technically in a specific order. It's the activation sequence, then the Venus sequence, which leads into the Pearl sequence.
And so the activation sequence is sort of like, can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah. And again, I'm not an expert. I have read through my activation sequence. I did them backwards. Okay. I have a tendency weirdly to do that with things in my life where like you're supposed to start over here, but I start like over here and I work my way back. So I started with the Pearl sequence because I bought all the books and I was like, it's my one, you know, my investigator, like I need to know all the things. Yeah. And so I started with the Pearl sequence, I went through the Venus sequence, and then I went through the activation sequence. But the way that I have kind of experienced the sequences, to me, the activation sequence is like a pillars of foundation. It's more of like a broad spectrum. And because it contains 4 gene keys, and like even on the shape of the hologenetic profile, it kind of goes in like a Z, but it like makes a square. Like they like create this like balance on your chart essentially. So that's kind of how I looked at it, was like, this is kind of a foundation with which to build off of. It gives me kind of like a rounded out, more expanded view, or simplified view even of kind of my general like essence, right? Like what I'm here to do and why I came here. I don't know if the activation sequence book would say that per se about itself. Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of how I would like generalize it. And then the Venus sequence is all about how like relationships, it's relating to others, also relating to ourselves. And so that kind of follows a path of kind of different, I would say like phases or stages in a relationship. And I even I applied it to the streamline method in our business model, because it like when I was like going through the streamline and I was like, oh, I think McKenna actually said like, I think this would like fit well with the Venus sequence, and I was like, I'm gonna take that and run with it. And I like created this whole thing, of like, because it's about building relationships. And what are we doing in our business? We're building bonds with people. Right. And so basically, like, how I've seen it in relation to business, but you could really see it in relationship to life, is there's different stages of relationship, right? Different stages of building a friendship or a bond with someone. And if you skip a step, it's usually like, then there's some dissonance, right? If you like miss a step, or you're like in a different frequency inside of each sphere, then it's kind of like a model, like, oh, I could go back and like repair there, or like tune into what needs correction, you know, and then keep moving. So that Venus sequence is all about how you find yourself in relationship to other people. And then the Pearl sequence is the abundance sequence. So the way that I've been like tuning into the Pearl sequence again just recently, because for me, I've been doing a lot of work around money, my relationship to money, and like, I'm also doing the deconditioning process through the human design. So like, so much is being shown to me in my mind where I'm like, that's not real. And what I'm finding is like, the Pearl sequence being about our abundance is the pearl, you know, that's like the holy grail, right? That's like the essence of all, like the culminating of everything coming together. And like, you can go into the lines, and that like gives you a deeper layer of, I guess there are a lot of moving parts in the gene keys as well, just like the human design. I guess it's a little easier for me to understand, but like, the pearl is like, to me, where all abundance comes from. It's like when we can get into that space, and I don't mean abundance as money. I loved Kira the other day. She was on live, and she shared like all this language about money, and like, money is money. Abundance can be a lot of things. And when I was revisiting my own pearl, I was like, wow, okay. So not only could this, yes, potentially provide me financially when I'm in this essence, but like, my line is nature in my pearl. And I was like, oh, okay, this makes sense to me. Like, there's something about, for me personally, that is so satisfying about being in nature. And the siddhi of my pearl is grace. And when I like went back and I was like reading about it, because my line 6 talks about that I have this vision for a time when money isn't in existence, like back, you know, like the old times before money, like tribal kind of thing, but also like recognizing that like we've transcended, like we've come through this portal, and now we're moving out of it in a different way now, and like holding that vision for this more natural alignment of our abundance, and recognizing that money it's an illusion to distract us from true abundance. That's like where I've been at. So that was kind of a long, like, just using myself as an example. But yeah, so the sequences is activation, Venus, and then Pearl. But feel free to do it backwards, because I did that and it made sense too.
Yeah. I've done the Pearl and the activation sequence. I haven't done the Venus yet. Yeah. Even though I know that one probably is going to be a real kicker for me, like in such a good way. And what I like about the gene keys, okay, like I also was into human design first, and just found it really fascinating. But there's a thing about the wording and the poetry that comes along with the gene keys that really resonates with me. So like, you know, the human design is practical. Well, they're both practical, but it's really practical, but it's almost like it doesn't register with me in the same way yet. Yeah. I know it will when I, you know, as I keep learning and keep diving in, but there's some pieces of it, like I've had the human design reading with Vita, but it was like whoosh, like so much information coming at me. But when I read the Gene Keys, there's something so like subtle, and it just pulls me in, and it's just like this poetic sort of, I don't know, resonating. It's, the words are just so resonating for me. And it's like you said, like they're all applicable. We have all of them. So every time I read, because I've read more than just mine, but every time I read them, I can identify with it. And of course I can identify somebody else in them too. And then I'm like, gosh, I really want to share this with somebody. I really want to share this with this person or this person, you know, because to me, it's so, it's empowering, even the shadow parts. It's empowering, and it's like, it's almost like a breath of fresh air, like this relief. It's like, it makes so much sense to me that it gives me like a peace. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, well, that makes sense. I understand that, you know, the shadow of dullness, or, you know, whatever it is. And that makes sense. That makes sense. And it's almost like it gives me a way to go, as opposed to other things that I've read, like astrology.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't, you know, that's been in my life for a long time. And I can identify with a lot of the things, you know, I'm Aries, and there's this, that, and the other thing. But there's something about the Gene Keys that is completely and utterly different to me.
Yeah.
Just so much deeper and realer and more authentic.
Yeah, I agree. When I found the Gene Keys, like I was into astrology and like all these other, you know, the Enneagram and like all the things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when I found the Gene Keys and I read like the introduction and like how he kind of like breaks it down, how you can use the book and everything like that, I remember thinking, wow, there really is something here. And it personally for me has been my most sacred self-reflection tool. Like anytime I have a question, I'm like, what are the Gene Keys talking about? Like what's going on in my chart? Or like where, you know, like what sphere do I feel like I'm in my hologenetic profile? What do I feel like I'm transmuting? And I love that it had like, because I was getting the message before I even found the Gene Keys that everything was a frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I was like, yeah. So when I like was reading the book, I'm like, oh my God, he's talking about that. Like, that's what he's talking. Everything is a frequency.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of like ate it up, and I was just like in it all the time, like talking about it to people and thinking about it and just like reading and just digesting all the information. And I personally have always been like I don't know what the technical term is, but like I use the dictionary a lot and the thesaurus a lot, because I've always felt that like, you know, you could say one word, but what you're looking for, what you're meaning is of a different frequency. Like the word that you choose carries the frequency, you know. Like you could say I love you to someone, but maybe you really only mean like I sort of like you, but
yeah.
but it, you know, like, and but that's a kind of like generalized, you know, example. But there's something about the language that was transmitted through him when he wrote this, that is very poignant, you know, like it carries a vibration that you're like, oh. And I love that he often redefines certain words. Like one of the Gene Keys we talked about a few weeks back, he redefined what commitment means. What commitment means as we're evolving, and like so the new definition of commitment, because like I feel like the old definition that we all feel in vibration of commitment is like you're committed, like you're doing it whether you like it or not, you know. Yeah. And the redefining of commitment that he offered was being committed to listening to your inner guidance system above all else. And that's your commitment to yourself, but also to others, that like, hey, I'm committed to listening to my inner guidance system. I also invite you to be committed to listening to your inner guidance system and being in open communication about what that means, especially in relationships. The Gene Keys is very relationship oriented because I feel like we contemplate these things when we come into interaction with frequencies, yes. Right? Not just within ourselves, but when we're experiencing them in relation to ourselves. So, yeah, it's really interesting. The poetry. I love that too. I'm a poet. I've written books that are unpublished yet, but like, he has a very like romantic way of expressing almost the levity of it too, you know, like it doesn't, as much as like the shadow frequencies can feel heavy or burdensome, there's hope in the words that he speaks. And I feel compelled to share that, like, when talking about the Gene Keys, and when inevitably you check them out for yourselves, listeners, there's in the shadow, so it's like the shadow frequency, the gift frequency, the Siddhi frequency, and inside of the shadow it's like the ultimate trinity. So like the three frequencies of each Gene Key are the trinity. Like the shadow is not bad, it's not negative, it's not, you know, wrong to have it or to feel it or to experience it. But inside of that, when we can have an awareness of the shadow, it opens the channel to move through it into the higher frequency.
Yes. Yeah. That was so well said. Yeah. I love that. So for you, what has like really shifted for you? Like, can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, you've talked a little bit already about that, but like, so life before the Gene Keys and then life after the Gene Keys.
I would say that life before the Gene Keys, it felt, because I was already on my awakening journey. Like I was really working hard to know and understand myself. And I had a lot of tools that I used before the Gene Keys, and before human design. But since finding these self-reflection tools, I would say it's really simplified my process. It feels liberating.
Yeah.
I feel liberated that like I'm not like, oh, let me go over here and check this and let me check over here, and like, you know, and the other thing that is like coming up as I say that is it feels like it has directed me back home to myself, and knowing that I am my own ultimate authority, and that I am ultimately I must be self-responsible. Yes. Because when I'm not in that space, I'm causing harm. Like that's how it feels to me, you know what I mean? So that's what I would say in answer to that question. Before, I think I was still not as self-responsible as I was able to be, even though I was trying and working, you know, like trying to get to that space. The Gene Keys really, and human design as well, but the Gene Keys was my gateway. I feel like the Gene Keys is like a gateway drug into human design. Like if you can absorb the Gene Keys, I feel like you'll eventually move into the more scientific space of the human design, because it activates something in you. I remember when I first started reading, I was activated all the time. I was just like, whoa. And it wasn't through the mind, because like there'll be times I read and I haven't cognitively absorbed anything, but then when we meet on a call or I'm talking to someone about my experience, like it like wells up in you and you're like, oh, I totally retained all of that. It's just I want to say it's a felt experience within your own body. And I feel like the reason that I started, I'll just put put a tag in here for the reason that I started my online community, the Portal of Overflow, is because I was talking about this with so many people and was like,
Yeah.
guys, we should just all talk about this together, because your experience of these gene keys and the way in which you have it in your body is probably different than the way that I have it. And we can all learn from each other. We can all receive that wisdom of shared experience, and not like we shared the same experience, but the shared experience of how we each individually, I want to say it's like bio individual, the way that you experience the gene keys. And so now we meet every week to talk about the current gene key and to share about our experience with these frequencies in our own body. And it has been so profound to listen to your guys' experiences and to like gain wisdom from all of you that helps me then continue to self-reflect and become even more deeply connected to myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. And I remember you saying that you read this like 40, I think it was 46, right? 46, you were talking about reading it a couple of years ago and then reading it again and how it's different. So each stage of your life, it's bringing you something different as well.
And we can absorb it. I feel like we absorb it differently, you know, like maybe it activates on a deeper level in the DNA, because like that's really what it is. It's like it's a DNA activation, like he talks about in the book. He talks about you know, we have like, they say we have like 2% active DNA and the rest is junk DNA. And you know, in this, through this gene keys lens, the junk DNA has just not been activated. It's not junk at all. Like it is precious material that is just like waiting to be like lit up from the inside. You know, and I feel like for me, that's kind of what happened when I say I was activated when I was reading it. It was like, wow, okay, like it felt like a bubbling up. It was like, oh my God, I'm alive.
Yes. Well, I started reading, you know, the gene keys I was going through, and then I went and read the introduction, although I had listened to the introduction on Audible and was like, wow. Well, then when I read it for myself, I was so struck by just how magical they are and what they do and how applicable they are and how they're the full spectrum of being a human and just what it's like to be a human and have all those frequencies and move through life and gain knowledge. And there's certain, I mean, I have a pen in that book all the time.
Me too.
Yeah. And so I'm just like underlining and underlining. I can almost underline everything, but just the introduction was so like pulling me in and giving me so much hope. Do you know what I mean? Like just the introduction, and then even going in the back and reading the glossary and reading about, you know, just taking a couple of the definitions and reading those are activating as well. And then the back where it has all the shadows, the gifts, the cities all listed, just reading those and just seeing how everything is sort of these layers that are us, these beautiful layers that we resist.
Yes.
And it's like when you start reading this, my resistance started dropping away. And, you know, one of particularly Gene Key 25, the gift is acceptance, and just really learning, you know, as I do my daily life, as I walk around my home, as I interact with people, just really accepting people for who they are. It has made my body feel more, but also just feel more relaxed.
Yeah.
That constriction, it's constriction, and then acceptance. I don't even know what the gift is now. I mean, the city.
Is 25 in your profile?
Yes,
Yeah.
25 is my
Okay.
first one. So.
Oh, okay. So your
Yeah.
life's work.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then 46, it's the partner.
Okay.
46 is the partner. And so that one is the one that we just did. And so acceptance. And what was the gift for 46?
Let me just look it up here. 46 is the gift of delight. I should know that because it's in my profile. But.
So how it builds on itself. So with the acceptance, then I find delight. And just being in those frequencies, it just changes everything. And now I feel myself constrict, at times too. And then I have to remember, I don't have to remember. I choose to remember, okay, well, this, everybody is doing the best they can, or this is temporary, or whatever the case may be for me, that helps me get into acceptance, and it's such a wonderful, easy, I don't know if easy is the right word, but but it just has made things so much easier for me personally.
Yeah. I love that you brought in the programming partners as well, because that it like show, like, this is all about your DNA, and our DNA is an intricate woven thing. And so the fact that, like, each gene key does have a programming partner, meaning that they play off of one another, right? So like in the shadow frequency, it would be like the constriction, and what's 46? I didn't even look at it. So because those are programming partners, like you said. So constriction and seriousness.
Yeah, seriously.
Think about for yourself when you're like really serious, you feel like tense, and you like, you get all like jacked up. And like you said, with the gift frequency, acceptance, when you come into acceptance, you're able to experience that frequency of delight. And I don't know what the siddhi is of 25, but the siddhi for 46 is ecstasy. And I just like, and then on top of that, each gene key also, like I said, has a codon ring it's a part of. And those are all different. Like there's one codon ring that is just one codon. Like it's one gene key. Some of them have 8, or not 8, I don't think 8, but like 6 gene keys in a codon ring. So they all partner together, and they build these structures of, and then there's an amino acid that is related to them, and like a part of the body, or like the one we just did was like the blood. Right. It was related to your blood in your body. So I'm just like blowing my own mind saying, like, I guess there are a lot of moving parts to the gene keys. Like, and so there is more to it than it seems, but I feel like it's so relatable, that it can feel so simple. Like, that you could just read it. Like, that's why I love the Portal of Overflow, because you don't even have to have the book or have read it to be a part of the conversation, because it's all frequency. So like we can talk about the shadow, or and like use the language, and someone would be able to like feel into that and know their own experience around that language.
Yes.
Yeah.
The siddhi for 25, I think, is universal love.
Yes. Universal love and ecstasy. Universal love equals ecstasy. Ecstasy equals universal love.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
That's beautiful.
So one of the things that you learn when you jump into the gene keys is it's not about like just getting it all in and practicing all the stuff. It's about contemplation. So it's about taking it slow and noticing, right? Yeah,
and I feel like contemplation is a life long practice. It's like meditation, but it's almost like when you read a gene key and you feel it, you know, like it does evoke, it's a felt experience when you're reading it. You're like, it kind of like takes you back to, oh, I experienced that. I have a memory around that, right? And like it calls to remembrance these like feelings that you had in those moments. And it almost like when I think about like the shadow frequencies, when you contemplate that and you have like a recalled memory and you can tap into that feeling that you had, like whatever that shadow was inside of yourself, or experiencing someone else in their shadow, receiving someone else's shadow, and feeling that vibration, it almost helps to like dissolve. It's like it helps to dissolve our attachments to it almost. And I guess that's my own experience with it, is like contemplation brings us to that state of acceptance. Contemplation, it's not it, although it is in the mind, it's not in the mind. We're like feeling in our body. Like, what's going on here? I'm feeling something. What is this? And like being in conversation with the body, with and like the gene keys is also a part of the conversation. You know, it's like adding some sauce to the mix, you know. So that would be like my definition of what I feel contemplation is. Like it's coming into like a deep like understanding or understanding of yourself through just like constant and consistent witnessing of yourself. Yeah. That feels on point. I'm like, what did I just say? I have no idea.
It was flowing, that's why.
Yes.
Sometimes when it flows, it's like, I know what I said was on point.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so it is something that you take slow. It is something that you don't, it's not like a rip off the Band-Aid kind of a deal. I mean, I've been doing self-development work for a really, really long time, even before, you know, probably like you, before I woke up to a lot of things, you know, especially when I learned about the law of attraction and vibration and all that kind of stuff. So this is like, you know, and that stuff is like kindergarten, really. Like when, you know what I mean? It's like when I learned about that, it was really like really learning about my perspective of life, my perspective of things, and how I hold things. And then going into this, it's just it's so much deeper. I mean, we could keep saying the same thing over and over again. It's so much more relatable. It's so much deeper. It's so poetic, but it is. It really is.
Yeah, I feel like it too is like it really is a body thing. And like I'm a firm believer that like we are shifting from the paradigm of the mind to the wisdom of the body. And just the fact that like this has to do with your DNA and like all of that, it is like it is this coming into this deep listening. I feel like that's related to contemplation as well. It's like, okay, I have this information. Now I'm like self-reflecting on this information about how it feels inside my body or what my experience has been, and listening, you know, and weaving the all of it together. I also feel compelled to share that one of the things that I feel like the Gene Keys has offered me in my own life is this acceptance. Is like, because I shared earlier about the shadow being the channel that gets opened and like it's like the portal that takes you into the higher frequencies. And I spent a long time in my life avoiding the difficult things, like the difficult emotions, the difficult situations, just kind of being in like ignorance, like blissful ignorance, I guess, which it wasn't really that blissful, but like just not being self-aware and not like having an awareness of what was happening around me. Like I often say that like my up until my like awakening moment when I was 27, there's like parts of my life that I don't remember. Mm-hmm. And I was really grateful because Vita actually threw in like at one point where we were talking about that, and she was like, you were probably just really present with your experiences. You didn't have to take it with you because you were just there in it, you know. And I was like, oh, that's so comforting. Yeah. But just it has really anchored in something I already knew, that I got a message in late 2019 probably, or you know, mid 2019, that came through very clearly, that it was like, okay, so many, including myself, have spent a majority of our lives seeking bliss, joy, satisfaction, success, all the good things, emotions, feelings, and pushing aside or like suppressing or like shoving in a closet all the things we don't want to feel.
Yes.
And I remember it clear as day. I was like out walking my dogs, and I'm like turning the corner, and I thought, wow, the amount of joy that we're seeking, the bliss, the ecstasy that we want, like we desperately want to enter into, only happens to the extent by which we are willing to go into the other spaces on the other end of the spectrum. And it was like, woo, 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 this is it, you know? And it was, and I was like, wow, okay, I'm going to explore this some more. Because I myself had always been like just chasing joy, you know, spiritual community, like rainbows and butterflies, yep. And like everything's good all the time. And I've always had, since a very young age, a space to hold for deep grief and sorrow. And like I was able to feel that and not be afraid of it. Mm. And I feel like the Gene Keys really like anchored that for me, or it was like, okay, the dark stuff isn't bad. It's not, it's a part of the equation. Like we need to go there. We need to look at it. We need to face that within ourselves. We need to be able to hold space for it for other people as well. Because when we can allow ourselves to feel it, to acknowledge it, to witness it, we get to enter into that higher frequency. We get the opportunity to move into those spaces that we actually long to be in.
Yes.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes so much sense, because over the past few years too, I have been noticing in my own body, like my desire to escape the scary feelings, the harder feelings, some post-traumatic stress, you know, different things like that. And I was like, I don't want to go there. I don't want to feel that. And then I was like, but I'm not moving forward unless I do this. So how am I going to get okay with feeling all those feelings? Mm-hmm. Because like you said, it's like if you're suppressing this feeling, you're suppressing this feeling, you're losing the spectrum. If you've got this, you know, ultimate joy and ecstasy and grief and despair, when there's truly something to have grief and despair about too, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So if you're in the middle, if you just try to stay in the middle all the time, you don't get to live your life really. You're living a half life. Mm-hmm. So this is something that I've been working on, especially in the past, well, really deeper in the past few months, but over probably the past year, is just like, okay, I have this physical sensation in my body. I don't like it, but how can I partner with it?
Yeah.
and so that it will go somewhere else, so that it will actually move through me, rather just, because if I keep like suppressing it, it's just going to stay in my body, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the gene keys for me has helped that tremendously too. It's like just
Amazing.
noticing, and that awareness, and like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this is a normal sensation, a human sensation.
Yes.
Our minds they can go crazy, and they can do all kinds of things with, fear and stuff like that too. But then there's like, that's usually linked to something from maybe when you were a child or something like that. So it's like all these things are intertwined, and it's all part of the work.
Yeah.
To get to the full human experience.
Agreed. Yeah, it's funny because I feel like we can tend to be a little bit disillusioned to the fact that like we came here for a reason, right? And to me, the reason we came here was to experience being a human. And we asked to come here to experience that full spectrum, yet we run away from a whole part of it because we think we came here to be happy, or we came here to be blissful creatures. And like, although that is a part of it, and there is some truth to that, that's not the whole of it.
Right.
And I feel like we've talked about this in the Portal of Overflow, like the altar of all, and like creating this space that says, here's my joy, here's my grief, here's my sorrow, here's my my bliss, and like honoring them all as equal, loving them all, loving all of those aspects of ourselves. And I feel like the gene keys really activates an emotional intelligence. Because around the same time I started reading the Gene Keys, I was learning about emotional intelligence. I'm an emotional authority in human design, and now I'm just learning what that means and how to use that to help myself be guided, like to be my guidance system. And I lived most of my adult life and even my young life like being shamed for having so many emotions and expressing so many emotions. Like, I remember at one point in my life someone saying, like, if you can't have a conversation without crying, you're basically not an adult. And I was just like traumatized by that, because I was like, but I just am feeling like there's, and so like coming into this knowledge of me being an actual emotional authority, and that is what guides me. Like, I'm like, oh my God, I feel so at home in my body now. I feel so safe at feeling my feelings. And I feel like the Gene Keys, even before I knew that about my human design or what that meant, it really cultivated an emotional intelligence, because you're aware of all the frequencies of emotion. It really creates like, it's not like, bliss is over here and the deepest grief is over here. There's the full spectrum of everything in between. Like, have you ever seen that like wheel of emotions or whatever that like gives you, okay, so like everything's kind of rooted in like general, 5 or 6 root emotions, but like you can feel them in so many different colors. That's kind of how I feel like the Gene Keys like brings it in. It like helps us witness the full spectrum of feeling, and acknowledging and accepting all of them as a part of our wholeness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I want to make sure that I don't miss anything that I wanted to make sure we talked about.
Okay.
So the hologenetic profile is, it's just for everyone to understand that it works off your birthday, where you were born, the time you were born, and your birthday.
Yeah.
And so so I have 4 kids, okay? And the first 2 have the same birthday, 4 years apart, and the second have the same birthday 4 years apart. And they're yeah, so they're and it's boy girl, boy girl. So their gene keys kind of overlap a little bit because they have the same, you know, their time. One was born at night, one was born in the morning. And then and the same with the other two. One was in the morning. Oh, both the girls were in the morning and both the boys were in the evening. I'm so patterny. but their gene keys sort of have some of the same, not all the same, but some of the same stuff in them, and their human design as well. You know, and then like my son's son, my oldest son, like they have some overlapping. They don't have the same birthday, but they have some overlapping stuff in them. Well, maybe not overlapping, but some, you know, like the entrepreneur. Like I was like, well, this makes sense, and you know, the entrepreneur in them, and then some of the other things also coincide. But I found that really cool when I did, because I was, you know, I have to know their gene keys. So, and then, and how similar they are. Like some it's like the whole beginning stretch is all the same.
Wow. Have you looked at, so like the spheres are the same, like the gene key is the same, but are the lines the same too, or are the lines different?
I haven't gone that far because I don't understand the lines yet either.
Okay. Well, we could do like a gathering in the Portal of Overflow to like talk about the lines and what that means, because like to me, I didn't really know about the lines until I had already been studying the gene keys for like a year and a half, and then I was like kind of craving a little bit more like, I want to say context. So like the lines in your hologenetic profile kind of like, it's like a lens that you can read your gene key through that's like more bio-individual to you specifically.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, and like the books for the sequences have the like transmission for the lines for each sphere. So like each sphere, like it's basically the like in, how do I want to explain this? In the human design, and same for the gene key because they both go along the I Ching. So we'll be in gene key 18, but each day that we're in gene key 18, we're in a different line. So like today for gene key 18 in the human design, we're in line 3. And that has a special connotation to the flavor that we might taste gene key 18 in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the lines kind of offer like a deeper level of how you might experience the frequency. And so it's pretty cool to like go, like, since you've read everything in your hologenetic profile, to like read the line and have that context, and then go back and read your gene key from that context. Okay. It's really cool because then you're like, whoa, that's
Okay, yeah, because I did notice the lines in my, you know, it says line 3 or line whatever. I noticed all those, but I was just like, okay, I'm not ready to go there yet because I just didn't, you know, I wasn't ready to put that hat on yet. Yeah. So, okay, let me see if there was anything else. So, and then so people know, you can get the Gene Keys book, and it's huge, but it's very inexpensive.
It's giant. It's like a textbook.
Yeah.
It's like $20.
I know.
If anyone wants to get it, there's a link in my bio that says more Gene Keys information, or like get deeper with the Gene Keys, and you can click it and you can go straight from that link and buy the book. And it supports the Portal of Overflow.
Awesome.
So yeah, grab it if you're interested. It is so worth the $20. You will not regret it.
Yeah, I couldn't even remember how much I paid for it, but then when I looked again, I was like, I only paid that much for it. This is like gold.
Yes. Yes.
And then I bought the Way also.
I don't have that one, I don't think.
Yeah, so it's like another take on each of them.
Oh yeah, that's like Richard Rudd's like that's like his contemplation of each gene key. Yeah, I don't have that one yet, but I've been eyeing it for a while.
Yeah.
So you like it?
I have just read very little of it so
Okay.
far because I'm more into the actual gene keys. So I mean, I liked it. It is different, but yeah, I'm like, okay, I'm not ready to go over there yet. I think I'm gonna just stick with
Yeah.
keeping on with my my gene keys. So is there anything else that you can think of that you want people to know about the gene keys?
I don't know. I just feel like I'm a huge advocate for it. I think it's an excellent tool for self-reflection. It's not like, you know, a defining like this is who you are.
Right.
It's very much like open and expansive for so much growth in a very organic way. And like we said earlier, you can return to it again and again and receive a different transmission because you are in a different place and experience it in a different way. So yeah, it's a really transformative thing, and I highly recommend it.
I do too.
Yeah.
And you can get your hologenetic profile on genekeys.com.
Yes, you can. And it's free. You just enter it in. You don't even have to give them, like, some places you have to like put in your information and then you have to like, get on their email list. They don't even, you can do that through there, but it's not required to get your profile in that way. You can just save it and get it as a PDF. And I really wanted to say too that one thing I've noticed, because I use the genekeys.com as a resource a lot to like gain deeper insight, and they have a lot of free resources.
Yes.
But one of the things that I love about their way is everything is incredibly financially accessible. Like even their courses that they put on, or their workshops or their classes, so accessible. Like
Yeah.
I was like, they could charge thousands of dollars for this stuff.
Yeah.
And like I think like their like flagship course is like to become like a Gene Keys like professional or whatever, like to be able to give readings on charts and stuff like that. It's like $500. And then they they give you like access to, like, say I became a Gene Keys person, went through their course and I'm like certified, and I want to, then I'm going to do like a class on the Venus sequence. They give you rights to share their course for the Venus sequence with your people. You just like include it in the cost.
Wow.
But you have access to all the material. And when I like heard, because I was like researching, do I want to do this? I don't know. I haven't done it yet, but I'm just going with the flow, But I was like, that is so generous. It is
really
so generous for them to, one, give this stuff away for like basically nothing. And because it, like, I just think that this is just me speculating, but I feel like they just know the power behind it.
Yes.
And that it is truly transformational, and to make transformational things available to people on all levels, it's really important.
I agree. Yeah. And it has an impact on your community, then therefore your world. I mean, it's like that ripple effect. So when somebody picks up the Gene Keys and starts becoming aware of themselves and being in relationship with themselves, it ripples out. It has an impact on everything around you.
Yeah.
So of course, and anybody can pick this book up.
Anybody.
You don't have to have some special knowledge or anything like that. It's anybody. If I could pick it up, anybody can pick it up.
Yeah.
Really,
totally.
anybody could read this book and get something from it. Like, I just want to read it out loud to, Yeah, I'm like you. I'm like, okay, there's so many times where like I'll message Ivy and I'm like, okay, I'm reading this and and she's like, okay, I'm gonna and so we're both back and forth about it too, and we've shared our Gene Key profiles with each other so that we can see how we can be most supportive with each other as well. You know, so like you were saying, you and your partner, you read his gene keys. So
yeah, it's helped me gain understanding for other people in my life. You know, just how and even if it doesn't necessarily feel resonant to them, it gives me a context to go off. Like there's been so many times I'll like send something to my partner and be like, does this feel resonant to you? Like, how does this feel for you? Because this makes sense to me, but I don't want to just presume that this is your experience about this in your own life, you know? But it really has, it's given me a context by which to kind of like hold space for where someone else might be at. And I love that you and Ivy like share that kind of stuff, because that is part of the contemplation too. You know, like when I was talking about McKenna's in my podcast, like we were just talking about stuff. We were just tuning into things and like, well, what about this? And like, how does this feel? Like we just talked today about that on the phone. Like, you know, like I'm feeling this energy. Like, what is this? How are you experiencing this too? Are you like, and what's been your experience? How are you translating that? And like gaining wisdom from each other to like just keep pressing forward, keep moving forward within the feelings, you know? It's so cool. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh. There was one more thing I wanted to say, and now I can't remember what it was. Oh, I know this wasn't it, but I did, when you were talking earlier, one of the things that I recalled is when you read the gene keys, it's like you're remembering something.
Oh, yeah.
That is what it feels like to me. And that, you know, I've read lots of different books that have, you know, that I feel that way with. But Gene Keys for sure is like this remembrance. Oh, I know what I was going to say too. Gene Key 55. Yeah. That is like, isn't that like the human, like that's like the collective or something? Yeah. I remember somebody saying that. And it's a really long one. It's like 32, 36 pages. It's really long. That one is fascinating.
I want to say it's like the collective like transmutation. I'm gonna just look it up just so we can have correct language. Yeah, it's this is so funny. It's the shadow of victimization, the gift of freedom, and the siddhi of freedom. Freedom 2 times. Freedom squared. And it's called the Great Change. So like, I think that this is where it applies to 2027 that the human design talks about. Like, it's like the evolution of our species essentially, and like how that is taking place on a genetic level, obviously, because that's how evolution works. And that's really, I love that you brought that up, because Gene Key 22 is its programming partner. Okay. No, it's not. I lied. But they go hand in hand. And that's my pearl, is Gene Key 22. And it's really long, and I still to this day have not been able to get through it.
Those are the 2 long ones, right?
Yeah, they're very transformative. But yeah, Gene Key 55 is like, I want to say like the time we're in right now, that we're all like, it's like the undercurrent that we're all experiencing, whether we're conscious of it or not. And like I feel like when you're on social media or whatever, like everybody's talking about transcending being the victim. Everybody's talking about it, and like coming into being your own authority, and like being like, I always saw it as like we're no longer being a victim to our life or whatever our circumstance. We are standing in victory. We are choosing to be victorious no matter what we face. And that's not like victorious like I won the gold medal. Like, it's like victory in the sense that like I am victorious because I'm here. I am victorious because I'm showing up. I am victorious because I am self-aware, and I'm like bringing all this in, like everything is my responsibility.
Yep.
I am responsible for my frequency, my feeling, and all of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
thank you.
yeah, thank you. This was so fun.
Yeah, it was. I'm so glad you did it. I'm so glad you said yes.
Me too. Thank you. Like truly, like when you invited me and you were like, oh my God, I thought of you first, and I was like, oh, thank you. Thank you for seeing me, and allowing me to come on and speak. I have a motorized throat, so like I could talk for like hours and hours and hours about all the things, especially feelings, because I'm an emotional authority. Those are the only two defined centers I have in my human design. So
I'm a sacral authority, and I have a non-motorized throat.
Okay. Are those just your two defined centers?
I don't know.
Oh.
I can't remember.
That's okay. We're going to exchange charts later because I want to look at your chart. Yeah. I'm just now like scratching the surface of studying human design. Vita has been such a huge support in me kind of like navigating all this. I got the book and I'm starting to read and like ingest all of that information. So that's like my next thing. But we're gonna keep doing the Gene Keys calls in the portal of overflow. Anybody who's interested in joining, you don't have to have any knowledge of the Gene Keys to be a part of that. And there's a link in my bio to join the portal as well. Can I just like share all the stuff?
Please do.
Thank you. So that's a community space. We're only right now doing the Gene Keys calls, but I foresee that there are going to be other group spaces inside of that as well, like other resources and calls that you can attend and be a part of. And Kimberly's a part of it. She knows how great it's been to like connect with each other on that. And then I also have, you can visit my website there. Everything's in my link in my bio, but I do my mentorship program, Sacred Space, which is basically made up of sacred reflection sessions intended to hold space for feeling and expressing safely. And I've been working with a handful of people for quite some time. I have a couple of clients I've been working with for a couple of years, 1 year. I got ahead of myself. And it has really been truly transformative. Like, I feel like I get the opportunity every day to do what I came to do, which is help people feel their feelings. And I just started an end of summer sale for sacred reflection sessions, not Sacred Space, the mentorship, but so people can get a taste of what we do inside the mentorship program. So I have one-offs, like single sessions or packages of sessions that you can grab right now at a very deeply discounted price to really feel into what this work is and becoming emotionally intelligent and loving yourself and accepting yourself on all levels. So definitely check it out. Yes, and then I have True Radiance, which Kimberly is a huge supporter of True Radiance Apparel Co. It was like kind of a love child for me, where I was just like, I want to make cozy things to wear. That's the mug. Feeling is healing. Just get the full spectrum. Thank you, Kimberly. So I have some great cozy sweaters, some t-shirts, beanies. That was the first thing I made because I have an obsession with beanies. So that was like, of course, the first thing that I was going to do. And I think that's all my stuff I have going on. Yeah, I think that's it.
I love your website. I love it's so beautiful and welcoming, and it's like, I don't know, it's sweet. There's a sweetness to it that I love.
Thank you. Thank you. I fully received that. I worked really hard on it.
It's beautiful. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And thanks again to you and to Ivy for inviting me to be on this. I feel so honored, and I was so thrilled to be like, oh my God, I got invited somewhere. And I look forward to all of you who have listened and are listening to the recording of this, like to connect with you and to just make some bonds with some really amazing people. So thank you again.
Yeah. Well, I will say goodnight. And this will be up on, this recording will be up on your channel, right?
I don't know. I've never done a live really, except with McKenna. So I guess we'll figure it out.
Yeah. It'll be on ours. I'll tag you so people can listen, and it'll also be on Inspired Sovereignty Radio as a bonus episode. So it will be going up very soon. And so hopefully lots and lots and lots of people, whoever's listening now, if you know that this would help somebody or be of interest to somebody, share it. Share it. Please. Share it. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I love you. I can't wait to see you again in real life.
I know, right? Soon. Hey, you live in Michigan, right?
I do.
Yeah, I might be going up there sometime before the end of the year, just so you know.
Oh my God. Okay, we're going to talk about that because I would love for you to come and visit me. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Yay.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I love you, and I will talk to you soon.
I love you too. Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.